Welcome to New Orleans Jazz National Historical Park's virtual performance series. The mission of the park is to serve the nation as a global leader in the dissemination of New Orleans jazz by enhancing and instilling a public appreciation and understanding of the origins, early history, development, and progression of this uniquely American music art form, jazz. Fred Caston will be conducting the interview from a desk with an overhead microphone. The person being interviewed will be responding to Fred's questions via their own home setup, utilizing their own in-home tools. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy Talking Jazz with Fred Caston.
And my understanding is that this will air in a package with Tom Hook's orchestra playing some of your dad's music on the Facebook pages of the Jazz Museum and the Jazz Park on St. Patrick's Day.
Oh, well, that's nice.
I don't know what time yet, but
okay.
That's what they told me. Lena.
All right.
And I think it's going to be edited for time, or
right.
I'm not sure exactly what time slot they're trying to fit with it. So,
okay.
If you ever feel like you misstated something, just feel free to go ahead and restate it.
Gotcha.
Otherwise, we'll just have a nice chat. I want to talk with you about, a lot of things, including your music and also your cultural activity on behalf of the Italian American community.
Okay, hang on. I was just renaming myself in case on the screen. Okay.
All right. So I'm just going to do a very brief introduction here. I don't know if they'll use this, but we'll do it. Hi, I'm Fred Caston. Thanks for joining us this afternoon for a conversation with a wonderful singer and very energetic cultural activist in the Italian American community in New Orleans and beyond. Please welcome Lena Prima. Lena, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I want to start right at the very, very beginning with you. Where are you from? Where did you grow up?
I was born in Las Vegas and spent a lot of my childhood traveling with, of course, my father, Louis Prima, kept a home here. We lived actually here in New Orleans at one point, and I went to school at Holy Rosary, and we lived across the lake, which is known as now the North Shore, but we just called it across the lake back then.
Right.
And had a golf course, Pretty Acres Country Club, so also lived there and went to school at St. Peter's and Covington High. So my childhood was spent back and forth between here and New Orleans. So New Orleans, Louisiana always felt like home to me as well.
Were those returns to New Orleans began pretty early in your life?
Yes, very early. Yep.
Yeah. So you really did have the experience of both places.
Yes.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
And my father really made sure to teach me about the different cultures and things, like especially the St. Joseph's Day altars and people's homes. We would just go and walk through neighborhoods and go in the homes in the tables and grab a goodie. And of course, Mardi Gras and Zulu was his favorite parade. So we would be in the grandstands and he would just go down and walk right up to the floats. He knew everybody. He would get coconuts. And so I learned about all these joyful, wonderful traditions and festivities from a very young age.
Yeah. Well, when your dad was growing up, I think he was born in 1910. The French Quarter was really more the Italian Quarter, or maybe more specifically the Sicilian Quarter. Really a residential neighborhood, with a lot of Italians and some African Americans living side by side. Danny Barker used to talk about all the Italians that lived in his neighborhood. He lived in the 7th Ward and the French Quarter with grandparents, some growing up. And he had colorful stories about the neighborhood in those days. I bet your dad did too.
Oh, absolutely. He told stories about the neighborhood being mixed with all different ethnicities, and that no one had fences around their yards, that everybody ate at different families' homes on a different night of the week. So they really all grew up learning about each other's cultures and heritages. And It sounded amazing on the pot that he grew up in.
Yeah, quite a, scenario, and produced a lot of great musicians out of that era. Man, what a list that makes of accomplished artists who were either active at the time he was, say, a very, turning into a teenager, or who came along with him at those
Yes,
as his contemporaries.
yeah, he talked about his family, sitting outside of clubs and churches and listening to the music that was coming out when he was a child, and also chasing after trucks, because trucks would have the bands playing on the back, which he said that's where tailgate trombone came from, because the trombone player had to sit on the tailgate
Right.
for the slide. But they would chase after all the neighborhood kids, chase after the trucks, and they would stop at grocery stores, and the grocery store owner would give them beer if they would stop there and play, because it would attract a crowd. And what a wonderful atmosphere to grow up in.
Yeah, that was how they advertised for
Yeah.
the later gigs, and a lot of young artists, young players, got their starts hopping up on the truck, um, playing with more experienced musicians
Yeah.
in that circumstance. Well, your family, your mom was an artist also, a musician, so a very musical family. Were you interested right away in music?
I was right away. Was on stage with my parents from, I'm thinking I was 4, possibly 5, my first time on stage at the Sands in Las Vegas, singing,
Do you
singing Santa
remember?
Claus is Coming to Town.
Santa
I
Claus.
remember
Yeah.
every moment of it, and
Yeah.
that incredible feeling of the spotlight and the people smiling at me from the audience, and I loved it. It's in me, and there was never a decision to be
Mhm.
a singer or be a performer. It's just something that's just in there.
Yeah, and after that initial experience, did you continue to perform some with them, or to get any lessons in any kind of formal training in music?
I never had any formal training. I did go to UNLV for a few semesters and studied. I auditioned and got into the jazz vocal ensemble, the choir.
Mm.
Also studied jazz dance, and I was an art student as well. Just I'm a creative person, so I was into all the creative things. But I got a chance to audition for a working rock and roll band when I was 19, and I quit college and I started working professionally at 19.
Well, did you much earlier, say your early teen years, were you in a garage band, or trying to sit in with some older folks who were playing rock and roll, or whatever it was? What were you listening to as well?
Well,
Uh,
in my teenage years, in high school, there in Las Vegas in particular, we had an incredible music teacher, Marcia Neal, who ended up being recognized by Disney as Teacher of the Year. She was incredible. So I was very involved in the music department in high school. I was um, a choreographer for the pop vocal group, also an artist for that group, and sang, and there was the glee club choir, and I was really involved in that as a high school student. um, but I didn't start working professionally until I was 19. But I was influenced by many different things at that time. I was really into rock and roll, so Heart was my main influence, because I had a similar tone in my voice. You want to
right.
copy people when you're a kid, and so I started copying Heart and singing all those Heart songs all the time. And that, so I was really into rock and roll and jumped at the chance to be in a rock and roll band.
Yeah. Well, that's a great way into music, and a lot of people have come through that doorway into music. In New Orleans, when you were here, did you ever get or were you aware of the Neville Brothers, the Meters, that side of at least funk, if not rock and roll?
Not I was too young at the time, so not until I was older and came back here as an adult.
Uh, uh, so when you decided to go full time into music, who were you working with, and what kind of places did you play?
I was in rock and roll cover bands, different bands. For probably, I did rock and roll bands for about 10 years and worked at local clubs in Las Vegas. So there were many happening, the popular rock and roll clubs, the Troubadour and Captain America's and Crackers were some of the names of the clubs, the Moby Grape,
Right.
and just played regularly. And I also worked a day job, a full-time day job, as
Mhm.
well as singing at night.
So you were a busy young woman.
Yes, yes, definitely.
Were you writing tunes at all, Lena?
Yes, I ended up at some point, I guess it was in the mid 80s, I ended up joining a band that was an all original band. And so began to have that experience of collaborating and writing original rock and roll songs, and then formed my own band with some other musicians from Reno. And I moved to Reno
Mm.
and we started our own band and we wrote, that's when I was really writing a lot. And we got the opportunity to record with Jeff Workman, who was a platinum producer engineer for many, many famous bands like Queen, Journey, Foreigner, The Cars, even Tom Jones. He's from Wales, so he actually worked with Tom Jones too. Journey, all these great bands that were my favorites. So it was an incredible opportunity. We submitted our demo and we got to do some recordings with Jeff Workman.
Oh yeah. Did those things get released?
No, we tried really hard. We At the time there were not many female fronted
Uh-huh.
rock bands. So we moved to Las Vegas. And we started to perform in LA at the Troubadour, the country club. And my band members were having a tough time because they had a female fronted rock band and
Uh-huh.
they got kind of, I don't know. We broke up basically because they wanted to go with a male. They decided that's the way to make it. So I was like,
Oh.
what do you mean I'm a girl? I'm not a girl. I'm a rock singer. I didn't
there's,
understand.
there's no gender involved with rock singer.
Yeah, that's the first time I ever experienced that in my life. I
Uh-huh.
didn't understand it. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Some things, I guess, maybe one day will change, are changing, have changed. Well, you've just kind of taken control of that yourself as you've
I
moved on.
didn't. Yeah, and that's really actually what led me into becoming a full-time singer so that I quit working day jobs and I started to work I started auditioning for they were called lounge bands that were working the circuit all throughout Nevada and surrounding areas that had casinos. And I got to work full-time as a singer. I was in many, many bands for the following 10 years, and it was really fun. It was hard work, so I got to experience what my father did as what he did for a living, working 4, 5, 6 shows a night, 6 nights a week, one day off, traveling 8 months out of the year, and I absolutely loved it.
It's Malcolm Gladwell talks in Outliers about the 10,000 hours it takes in anything to acquire mastery. And you sounds like you definitely put in your 10,000 in that
Yeah, at
stretch.
least, right? Yeah.
Well, there's no, so, and you work with great musicians in those situations very often.
Yeah, a lot of great musicians. Towards the latter part of that experience, I worked with some members of the Checkmates, and that's where I started to do tribute to my father. I always was a big fan of my father's music and loved his music, and that gave me the opportunity to. I would put on a little costume with a suit and a hat and come out, and I picked the songs I did. At the time, I picked that old Black Magic, Jump, Jive, and Wail, and 5 months, 2 weeks, 2 days, and I would come out and do those songs, and then subsequently the Gap commercial came out with Jump, Jive, and Wail on it. But that was a lot of fun for me, and I then when I left that group, I joined the remaining members of the Spiral Staircase, which had the big I Love More Today Than Yesterday.
Right.
They were looking for a female vocalist to travel with, and so I joined that group, and I was doing more of my father, and that's when I really people started to come and see this band that were headliners, and they would come up to me and say, "Why aren't you doing your own show? You need to put your own show together." And I felt, I'd always been working for somebody else and I just didn't know, I didn't have the confidence. So they really, all of these wonderful entertainers inspired, like Bob Anderson, they inspired me to put my own show together. And I did that. And I worked with an arranger and made all these wonderful charts. And I started my own show and went out on my own in 2000. And I've been on my own ever since.
And the last 10 years of that back here in New Orleans.
Yes.
Well, as a youngster, Lena, did your folks listen to music at home? If so, what were they interested in hearing when they weren't working?
Oh, my mother. Well, we listened to my father's records constantly. We loved him. I'm a super Prima fan.
Good.
But my mother also had huge record collection. So that's how I heard Tom Jones, and what a Tom Jones fan I am. I love his voice so much, and I certainly sang a lot of his songs. But many other artists, Frank Sinatra, Judy Garland, Edie Gourmet. My mom loved the Beatles. She had every Beatles album, so loved the Beatles. Elton John, she loved Elton John, and just lots of contemporary music. She would buy records of whatever was out on the radio. So, and she grew up in the 50s, so she loved music. So she had these compilation albums of all 50s music. So I was exposed to all this great music, and I just loved all of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So your tastes were pretty widespread as well.
Yes.
And that shows in the, I mean, you do some repertoire that, it comes from your tributes to your dad, but you have a wide range of things that you perform when I've seen you live and also on record.
Yes, absolutely. I love all kinds of music.
Mm-hmm. Well, was it the centennial of Louis Prima that got you back to New Orleans to perform at Jazz Fest? Was that 2010?
Yeah, that was an incredible opportunity. And I got to tell you, outside of New Orleans and having this opportunity coming up to perform at the Jazz and Heritage Festival was just like a dream come true. I looked forward to it like you would not believe. It was just, I'll never forget that moment, because that was just the significant moment in my life. I was here at the time that Jazz Fest happened for a 2-week period where other opportunities to play Louisiana Music Factory and the Royal Sonesta, and, a few other, the Blue Room at the Roosevelt. I got to play these places, and just the embracing that happened, the feeling I had, the energy of this city. When I got back home to Las Vegas, I just didn't even want to get out of bed because I wanted to walk out the door and it to be New Orleans. So that was the beginning of selling everything and trying to make the move.
And eventually, within about a year, I think you were here, right?
Yeah, I got here Christmas of 2011, and we did not have a job or a plan. We just thought we just had faith that we'll just make it happen. And the Monteleone was renovating the, I guess it was the restaurant in there, the coffee shop, and making a lounge. And they asked me to be the weekend entertainment. And so the opportunity happened literally as moving here. We had 2 weeks to put it together, and boom, 12th night was our first night at the Monteleone, and we've been there ever since.
That's of course, a historic and vintage hotel with its own Italian roots.
Yes. So what a magical thing to happen. That's absolutely my favorite place. My father performed there when I was a kid. And it's Italian family owned. I just so happy.
I've been lucky enough to get to know Ann Burr and her husband, John, Ann Monteleone Burr. And they've been great patrons of a wide range of creative people in New Orleans through the years. John's passed away now, but
right.
Ann is a wonderful choreographer and supporter of, say, New Orleans culture writ large. So very appreciative of all they've contributed. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about what Las Vegas was like in the you're there as a youngster in the what, late '60s into the '70s. What kind of a
That's
place
correct.
was that?
Well, it was also a magical place to me, and my father certainly made it enhance that. He loved to go out to eat. Well, first of all, just as a small child, getting to go to those shows of my father's was just incredible. As a little girl, to witness that kind of energy and excitement that he had on stage and the way the audience reacted. I'll just never forget those feelings. And then he loved to go out to eat, and we would go out, and he, as we're driving down the strip, he would say, "Look at the lights, look at this. People wish they were here right now, and you're here." And he would just make everything so exciting, and
Uh,
taught me how to look around, appreciate my surroundings. He was also, I just looked up to him so much. He treated people so special. I am talking the person who's vacuuming the carpet in the casino. He knew their name. He would go up and shake their hand. He tipped everybody. He knew everybody's name that worked at these hotels, kitchen workers, like the little people. It's like he never forgot where he came from. So I just looked at him like, what an example of a warm and loving human being who just loved people. And I really believe that's what makes his music still to this day successful, because you can feel that love and smiling in his music. And what made him successful as a performer, because he loved people so much. He knew what they wanted to hear and how they wanted to feel.
Whenever you combine passion and expertise in a package like, oh, a lot of people, but he's certainly a great example of that. You got something
Absolutely.
there.
Absolutely.
And he was surrounded by great players also. I mean, even
Always.
one of his first bands had Irving Fazzola on clarinet.
Right. Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
one of the all-time greats.
Yeah. And of course, Sam Butera,
Yeah, Sam
one of a
Butera,
kind.
one
Yeah.
of a great showman in his own right,
Yes.
and a wonderful player. Pee Wee Russell was another clarinetist of renown.
Yep.
He worked with through the years. And those shows he put on, it really kind of defined what came to be known, and maybe to his detriment as amongst the critics, but not amongst the music lovers, as what a Las Vegas show should be.
Yes, which I always find interesting because, first of all, super underrated as a musician. What an incredible trumpet player he was, with his own style, and similar to Louis Armstrong, because of course he grew up admiring all the musicians that were here in New Orleans. So he naturally had that sort of style too. But he did have his own style. He didn't consider himself a great singer, but what timing and the scatting ability, and also songwriting. I mean, he was just really amazing and had his own style. And that really came from growing up in this melting pot of New Orleans, the Sicilian influence of Sicilian jazz mixed with the New Orleans music that was happening. And he made his own sort of Siciliana jazz pop style. And he took that to Las Vegas. And then, people say that's Las Vegas style entertainment, but it really came from New Orleans, if you ask me.
Right. And Jelly Roll Morton talked about the Spanish tinge, but there's also a little tarantella in there. And
Yep.
And a lot of
Yes.
it in there when Mr. Prima got a hold of it.
Absolutely. His heritage. He stayed true to his heritage.
Was that something that he talked to you about as a youngster, your heritage and what it meant and how it was evidenced in the world?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. He taught me often. He reiterated to be proud of being Italian, to be proud of my name, the name Prima, and where it came from. And yeah, absolutely. It was very important to him, and he did convey that to me as a child.
Well, now let's race forward in time, and you get to New Orleans. You had decided, based on your experience in 2010, that this is where you needed to be. How has it been?
Everything I dreamed it would be. I just love it. From the moment those first notes came out, that first night at the Montleon and playing those incredible musicians. The musicians here are just incredible. The passion and it's just a different feeling all around musically. It just helped me discover who I am as an artist and a person and connecting with my heritage and roots and everything here in New Orleans. So yeah, it's been incredible. I absolutely love it.
You've collaborated with one of the artists I admire a great deal, Mr. Lawrence Seaworth, here in New Orleans, wonderful pianist and arranger and composer and producer, and made a great record, La Familia, Prima La Familia. Talk about that process. How'd you meet Larry? Where'd you meet Larry?
Well, thank you, by the way. I'm really proud of that album. And when we were moving here and needed to put a band together right away, we knew Mike Fulton, the trumpet player, already. So he suggested to us different musicians, and Larry, of course, for piano. So Larry actually was working for me right from the beginning. We worked together, and he is incredible. He's incredible. So when I wanted to do this project, which pays tribute to the Italian music that different decades, but really that my father became sort of a hero to Italians in the early 40s for recording these great songs and making Italians feel proud to be Italian. And I dug up some other, interesting Italian songs that I grew up with that he recorded. So I really approached Larry because I knew that he was the guy to work with to really make this the best it could be and, bring it to a new generation of listeners.
And the musicians that it was mostly Nashville players that were on there, right?
Yes, we recorded it in Nashville. We had a budget we needed to stick to, so we were definitely under a time constraint. It was very well planned out and thought out. And yeah, we went to Nashville and we got it done in 3 days.
Oh, wow. That was a lot of players and a lot of music to coordinate in that amount of time. Wow.
Well, it's an interesting story too, because Larry had found a video of a artist singing a Christmas album. And Scott Williamson was the drummer and also producer of this album. And when I listened to it, the way it was produced and the sound of the big band, the way it sounded live, because I didn't want a compressed sound on the album. I really wanted a live sound. I was really impressed by it. And then I reached out to him. And then it turned out that he and his father had worked on this project. And unfortunately, his father had passed away before it was finished. But so he had a connection with his father as well. And he was so excited about working on this. So there was really a lot of passion and, personal feelings going into this project with Scott Williamson and Larry.
Yeah. Well, did you have already in your head sort of a list of tunes, or how would the process go deciding what to put on this thing?
Yes, I did a list of songs I wanted to do. And I discovered sort of last minute this song that I had remembered as a child hearing my father sing as Fred Flintstone. I was watching a Flintstone movie and I ran to my mom, "Mommy, Daddy's Fred Flintstone." And she said I was mistaken, that my father had not done anything for Hanna-Barbera, which they're the ones that did the Flintstones. So I thought I was wrong. And as I'm working on this project, I had this memory of that. So of course I went on Google, I searched the Flintstone movie, found the soundtrack. And sure enough, my father sang a song called Pensate Amore.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful.
It's actually not on the soundtrack. It's only in the movie. So he must have done this. He must have been friends with Hanna-Barbera and done this as a favor, because it's not even on the soundtrack. It's the Hanna-Barbera singers. But the song is beautiful and the meaning of it. And I just felt like it was a little gift from me to my dad and vice versa, and was really happy to put on the album. And it's really a favorite of a lot of people who have the album.
Yeah, it's beautifully done by
Thank
all
you.
involved. That means think love. Is that what the
Yes, think
translation?
love.
It's
Don't think about tomorrow. Don't think about the past, which my dad was really like that. He was all about turn the page, be
yeah,
in the moment, you know.
yeah. He seemed like straight ahead all the time, and let's go to the next adventure.
Yes.
And he seemed to really live that. I mean, he lived his philosophy. I think he seemed to always, I mean, he certainly gave the appearance of always having fun performing.
He really did. He was like that all the time. He was a loving, warm, happy guy.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, who was in before the Great Plague hit? Who was in your working band, Lena? Who were you working with before all of this came to a screeching halt?
Adam Everett on drums, who is fantastic musician. Justin Pardue on trombone. Mike Fulton on trumpet. Thad Scott, who worked with Marcia Ball for 9 years. He's amazing on tenor saxophone. My husband, Tim Fahey, on bass. And Jeff Lashway, who worked with Maynard Ferguson for many, many years on piano. He's amazing.
Have you been able to work at all in this crazy time?
No, I have not. And honestly, I just haven't wanted to either, you know, just trying to stay safe. I have lots of friends who went back to work and ended up getting sick. So, yeah.
Yeah. Well, if we could hold our breath for a couple of more months and not too many crazy people wide open here, I think we may get around the bend and out of the woods eventually. But,
yeah, just trying to get to the other side of it and
yeah.
survive in the meantime.
In the meantime, right?
Yeah.
Well, there you are doing something very creative though that I think is a fairly recent innovation in your creative life, and that is Buenos Aires, Louisiana.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. I also want to mention that I did release an album in 2020.
Oh, right, yeah, it's a lot. It's the Big Band Live.
Big Band Live, which was the last big show I did that has a lot of the songs from Prima La Familia, but also other songs on it. But I thought it'd be nice to release something that's live and has that great energy and feeling and, you know, make some people happy. And that's on Basin Street Records as well as Prima La Familia.
You're talking about that live, wanting that live sound, and they did a really nice job of capturing that live performance.
Awesome. Yeah.
That was in Las Vegas, right?
Yeah, that was at the Smith Center, Myron's Cabaret Jazz Room at the Smith Center in Las Vegas, which is a fantastic venue. And I actually just took the sound from the video and produced it myself and made an album. So I've learned how to do a lot of things during the
by necessity, right? Yes.
Yeah. So, and then one of them, of course, is this new little show that I'm co-hosting with Charles Marsala.
Yeah, and boy, this guy is an encyclopedia of
he's quite amazing what he's done. What he's doing for New Orleans and for surrounding areas in Louisiana for Italian Americans and our culture and our history. He's just 100% focused on that. And he has the AWE News channel on YouTube. Mm-hmm. And it looks like we're going to be airing some of these shows in the month of March on WLAE, which we're really excited. And we've been featured also on MardiGrasTV.com. Since we started the show. So we're excited.
Well, how did you meet Charles, and how did the show evolve?
Well, I met Charles at the Piazza d'Italia for an event there shortly after I moved here. And he had also just moved back here. He left for a period of time, but came back. And we met each other, and he told me a story that he graduated from Jesuit, which my father, of course, everybody in New Orleans knows, was expelled from Jesuit.
Out of here.
Yeah. So Charles' graduating class, guess who the guest speaker was? My dad.
Oh, boy.
So he told me this story that
that's great.
He was standing there next to the priest and to speak to the class, and all he did was the double entendre, dirty jokes, and the whole thing. And the priests were cringing. And so it's like he got his revenge, and everyone knew it Charles said they just all knew it, and it was the greatest thing. So I love that story, and Charles and I became fast friends.
They set themselves up for that one, didn't they?
Yes, they should. Maybe, yeah, they sure did.
And Louis delivered.
Of course he did.
And he never failed.
Yeah, of course. So Charles and I have done some interviews together, and I felt like we had a real camaraderie and a charisma together. And I always said to him, gosh, we should do a little show together, Italian American show. It would be fun, and make it all about Italian things in Louisiana. So I got the idea, because here we are, and I've learned how to do all this editing, and he was 100% into it, and we are having a blast.
Let's talk a little bit about the concept. What are you doing? How often is it on? Where is it available?
Well, we're doing a weekly show, and we're posting it on Fridays. The concept is basically Italians and Italian Americans, what they have contributed to Louisiana and beyond Louisiana. Mm-hmm. So it's a positive, we're trying to just portray a positive contribution type show. So, of course, we're taking excerpts from Charles Celebrates Culture, which is on his On News channel for his little segments. We're doing just interesting, hey, check this Italian American out and check this website out, restaurants, businesses. There's a La Musica section where I'm calling on my Italian American friends that I know that are musicians and artists to feature them and show a performance, put together a little video montage, or just, Giada Valenti, who's from Venice and she lives in Vegas now, but she's lived all over the country. She's wonderful. She actually recorded a special thing for us from her living room. So it's different each week, and all different content, and all things Italian American.
And what are some of the portals that platforms we can view?
Well, I've got it on my website, linaprima.com, and if you sign up, you can get it delivered right to your email every Friday. It's also on my YouTube channel, which is Lina Prima, and we have a Facebook page, Buonasera Louisiana, where you can watch episodes there.
And you also began, I think, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, CIAO.
Yes. CIAO stands for Celebrating Italian Americans Organization. And I started it, I was inspired by Charles Marsala. He honored me on Italian Republic Day, which was in June, I think it was 2016. And being honored like that and recognized for my accomplishments inspired me. And I suddenly felt a responsibility to pay that forward. And so I wanted to honor other Italian American women community, and I started the CIAO Women Awards. So that's how CIAO started, and we decided to have that on Italian Republic Day to make that, what that means, known. And so I've had 2 awards ceremonies, and then we didn't have one last year, and I'm not sure about this year, but so just to celebrate Italians and their accomplishments and cause a ripple effect of positivity in the community.
What is the date of Republic Day?
It's June 2nd.
June 2nd.
Yeah.
So probably 2021 is going to be a little, unless you did it virtually, it wouldn't happen, but maybe 2022, huh?
For sure, yeah.
Yeah. We're going to keep our fingers and everything else crossed for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're really engaged with your heritage, and you're not just looking back, but extending it and evolving it as creative folks in the world today.
Yeah, I do feel a passion for it and a responsibility to carry that forward, because it's something that was important to my father, and I feel strongly about carrying that on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's definitely imbued in your music. What about your art? You mentioned earlier that art was an interest as a youngster. And I know you designed jewelry for a while. Are you still doing that?
I haven't done the jewelry. I stopped doing that, and I had to take that I had to take the website down and just condense everything.
Right.
Stop everything. The artwork, I went through a phase of doing fine art. And when I moved to New Orleans, I just haven't done any. I've been so involved in music and that part of my creative self and the jewelry part too. So I'm sure I'll pick that up at some other point, but I'm getting to use my artistic skills in the doing the Buenos Aires,
Right.
Louisiana show. I'm getting to use all those types of skills in it, and it's really fun.
And Tony Bennett told me one time, said Duke Ellington told him, always do two things. That way, when you get tired of one, you can go to the other.
Well, it's true. And I also find, interestingly, that, you give out a lot of energy as an entertainer. And I would find that I would crave to do something creative after big shows or, a lot of traveling and singing. And that I would want to make jewelry or sew or draw or something. And then it kind of fills you back up in the other creative space, interestingly.
Yeah, it can be that I think a process where I used to love. I go so far back in radio that I was cutting tape, for many years,
Wow.
and when it became digital, I kind of didn't want to do it because I like the craft of the thing, and while cutting tape, get a lot of good ideas. So there's something about
Yeah.
using your hands in a somewhat creative or at least artful way, and how that works with the creative side of the brain. I think that is can be productive.
Yeah, absolutely true.
And I'm happy I don't have to try to figure out what that 1 inch of tape hanging on the machine is anymore.
Yes.
What the hell is that? That's the one you need, but you can never find.
Right.
Used to be hanging that stuff all over the walls of the
Yeah.
production room.
Wow.
The what do you think? I'm sure you probably discussed this with your siblings and your mom. What do you think the legacy, the ongoing legacy of Louis Prima is?
The ongoing legacy, well, to me, his ongoing legacy is incredible musical arrangements and musicians and love. Love is something that he actually said that was all about for him, all about love. And he repeated that in interviews. And so that to me is what it is. It's love. And that's what made him so great. I'll say it again. That's what made him so great, made so many people love him and listen to his music. And his music will go on, I think, forever. I mean, he would be probably amazed if he knew how his music is still popular today. But I'm going to say love, with the love of other people, love of music, love of what you do, love of his heritage. That's his legacy.
Yeah, well, it's one that wears well and will wear long, I think.
Yeah.
And that music, I've yet to see anyone exposed to it that didn't start wiggling or jamping or jumping, clapping their hands, moving around, doing a little dance.
Yes.
It gets right inside you, doesn't it?
Yep. It's such an important thing to make people happy. It's an important thing.
Well, that's what the Hackberry Ramblers motto was. These were a Cajun band that was a couple of the guys in the band when they finally wound it down were in their late 90s. But their motto was "Make 'em dance."
And my dad's was "Be happy."
Yeah. So two good ways to look at the world as
Yeah.
well as the entertainment. What
Yes.
Once this pandemic, we're saying it's going to ends. Lena, what do you got on your horizon musically? Have you been thinking about putting anything together for the next opportunity?
It's interesting. I'm such a sensitive person that when this all happened, I sort of put that music part in some sort of compartment so that I wouldn't be sad or affected negatively by thinking about that, because it just seemed like there is no future. Like you don't know. So,
Yeah, right.
and me not knowing drives me crazy. So only recently have I started to feel musical inspiration again, which is definitely a positive thing. So yes, of course, I absolutely love I love creating music and I love to record. I love making albums. So I feel like as things get better and better, all that inspiration and passion and creativity for that music is definitely going to come back because I'm already feeling that happening. And I know we'll be back when everything's, safe and fine. We will be back at the Monteleon. So that's definitely going to be a thing. And I'll be looking forward to that day.
You're not the only one, sweetie. A lot of people will be looking forward to that.
Yeah.
Well, that's, I was wondering if back when you're in the rock band, you're doing some songwriting. Is that still something you're interested in?
Definitely. Definitely. I'm interested in that. And it's just a thing with, I don't know, albums are kind of like where you are, to me they are anyway. They're just where you are in that moment and what you have to say in that moment or what you're thinking about or feeling
Right.
or, that kind of thing. And that's the same thing with songwriting. I have to really have that inspiration and that feeling. And I'm that kind of person where that stuff just comes to me. And then I like to just flow with that. I don't like to be sort of, okay, I'm going to contrive and sit down and make this happen. I just can't work like that. So yeah, definitely. And inspiration does happen. And then I definitely want to write. I've got some ideas already. Like I said, that's sort of starting to happen. So yeah, I look forward to what will come out next.
I'm gonna take what's happening with you as a sign of an early cultural spring here, that we're going to get out of this mess by the end of summer.
Oh boy, I hope so.
All right. Well, me too. And I want to thank you for a lovely conversation here this afternoon. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, it's been my pleasure, and thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. And I do want, before we go,
Okay.
just say, are there plans for, I know there won't be parades, but what of St. Joseph's Day, which is we've got St. Patrick's Day and St. Joseph's Day, always two amazing events in the month of March involving the Irish, the Italians, and then the Mardi Gras Indians. So in a
Right.
way that only New Orleans can mix those elements.
That's right. Well, I know the parade is not happening. Of course, they'll do that again next year. But Charles Marsala put together an event called St. Joseph's Jazz as a way of safely celebrating St. Joseph's Day. And that's on March 20th out at Homa's house, out on the property there, which is very large. So
Yeah.
he's got the Santo brothers going to perform and some other events happening out there. So he's so wonderful. And to try to make something like this happen so that some people who feel safe about celebrating can go and celebrate St. Joseph's Day.
So that'll be outdoor activities.
Yep, outdoor
on the
event.
grounds at
Yep.
Homa's house
That's right.
on the 20th.
On March 20th. Yeah.
Right. So let's see, that is a Sunday?
Oh gosh.
No, we'll fix. I don't know, something like that.
I'd have to open up my book right now and look
Let's see, what is today? Is the 4th, the 11th, the 18th? Yeah, that'll be a Sunday. This
It's a
man,
Sunday?
I've got a public school education in Alabama that allows me to do arithmetic that fast.
You're better than me. I need to write it all down. I got to calculate on paper.
All right. Well, thanks again, Lena. Great to talk with you, and hope to see you at the Monteleon or French Quarter Festival, Jazz Fest, any and all of the above.
Yes.
Very,
Thank you.
very soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Fred.
Adios. Or ciao.
Ciao. All right.
Bye. Okay. I think that's the end.
Oh, it was great talking with you.
Yeah. Yeah. You as well, sweetie. And we'll, when you get that next record done, we'll talk again and talk about it.
Sounds great.
Yeah. And look forward to that.
All right. You take care.
Adios.
Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.